I always thought change would come with noise, sirens, fireworks, some dramatic shift I'd feel in my bones. But the truth is, the moment that changed everything began in the quiet hum of a cheap Hostel air conditioner on a warm North Carolina evening. The kind where the sunset leaks orange across the blinds like someone's holding their breath outside my window. I'd been in the hostel for 2 weeks, long enough to memorize the scent of the wooden hallways, the faint citrus cleaning spray, and the muffled footsteps of strangers passing by. But there was one sound I had memorized more than any other, the way his footsteps slowed right before reaching our door, as if he always hesitated for half a second. As if something pulled him back to me the same way I found myself leaning forward whenever I heard him coming. Josh, my straight roommate. Or at least that's what I kept reminding myself every time my heart tried to trick me. We had only known each other for 3 months since the start of the semester, but it felt like years. He had that effect on people, like he absorbed space without forcing himself into it. Tall, athletic without trying, with a kind of easy confidence that made him laugh with his whole body instead of just his mouth. The kind of guy who always borrowed my notes, always returned them with a doodle or a thank you sticky note, and never seemed to realize how those tiny things meant more to me than they should. I told myself it was nothing. Just a crush. A harmless one. Temporary. Something I'd outgrow once life got busier, once classes got harder, once I met someone who actually liked me back. But the human heart is stubborn. And mine had already chosen him long before I realized it. That night, I was alone in the room, stretched across my bed in a loose t-shirt and shorts, earbuds in, pretending to study but mostly laying there thinking about him. How he always pushed his fringe out of his eyes when he was tired. How he smiled sideways when he found something genuinely funny. How he somehow made even the simplest things feel meaningful. I glanced at the empty bed across from mine. His side of the room always smelled like mint gum and laundry detergent. He kept his backpack half open all the time, as if he might need something urgently, and tucked under his pillow was the photograph he accidentally dropped once. A picture of him and his little sister at the beach. He'd been so awkward when I picked it up for him, smiling shyly, thanking me, cheeks a little pink. It was silly, but I liked that I knew that about him, the sentimental side he didn't show to his friends. I stared at the photo from across the room now. Not the details, but the feeling, the warmth, the softness, things he didn't even realize he had in him. Maybe that's why I didn't hear the door open at first. I had taken out my earbuds for a second, stretching my arms above my head, thinking about whether I should grab a cold drink from the lounge. The door handle clicked softly, the metal turning just enough to break the silence. And before I could react, before I could pull myself together, he walked in. Josh, sweaty from the gym, a white t-shirt clinging to his chest, hair damp from either the shower or the evening air. His eyes found me immediately, widening just slightly, as if he hadn't expected me to be here. Or maybe he hadn't expected to see me lying like that. Relaxed, unguarded, alone. "Oh, hey," he said, breath catching a little. "Didn't think you were in." His voice was different, lower, softer. Like he didn't want to disturb the fragile quiet between us. "Yeah," I managed, sitting up too quickly, trying to look casual. "Just studying. Kind of." He laughed. That laugh. The one I felt in my chest more than I ever wanted to admit. "Studying? Lying down." He raised an eyebrow. "Sure." I felt heat crawl up my neck. "It counts." He kicked the door shut behind him, gently, almost absent-mindedly, and as he crossed the room, the air shifted. The scent of fresh soap, the faint mint of his gum, the warmth of his skin after the gym. It all drifted toward me, subtle but overwhelming in a way that made my heart beat faster than it should have. He dropped his bag on his bed, the springs creaking under the sudden weight. Then he turned to me again, eyes softer than before, studying me in that way he sometimes did without even knowing. "You okay?" he asked. Simple, genuine, like he could sense the things I fought hard to hide. "Yeah," I said, my voice barely steady. "Why?" "Just, you look like something's on your mind." He said it casually, but there was something deeper there. A question he wasn't saying. A thought he wasn't voicing. I swallowed. "Maybe." He didn't press. He never did. But he walked closer, leaning against the wall beside my bed, arms folded, gaze steady. The room felt smaller, quieter, warmer. His presence always did that, made everything feel more intimate than it had any right to be. And for the first time that night, I felt the shift, the subtle, unmistakable beginning of something I wasn't ready for, but couldn't stop even if I tried. The moment that would change everything. Josh didn't move from the spot beside my bed right away. He just stood there with his arms folded, shoulders relaxed, eyes fixed on me with that easy expression of his, the one that always made me feel seen without being exposed. It was the strangest combination of comfort and danger, like leaning over a railing that's sturdy but not tested. Moments like that always pulled me backward, into the quiet timeline of how we met and how, somehow, he became the one person I couldn't stop thinking about. We were assigned as roommates at the start of the semester. Randomly. Coincidence, luck, or cosmic misfortune, depending on how you looked at it. I remember the first moment I saw him standing in the doorway with his duffel bag slung over his shoulder. He had this surprised, awkward smile, like he hadn't expected to meet someone shorter than him, or maybe he didn't expect me to offer help carrying his things. He'd thanked me too many times for such a simple thing. We clicked faster than I expected. Our first conversations were about music. We both listened to the same old-school indie band almost nobody our age cared about. Then movies. Then late-night talks about places we wanted to travel to someday. Dreams we didn't fully admit out loud. And fears we weren't sure anyone else would understand. He wasn't just easy to talk to, he was easy to trust. And he trusted me too. In little ways at first. He let me hear the voice notes he recorded for his sister after her first week of high school. He told me about the time he failed a driving test because he panicked during a three-point turn. He confessed how much he secretly hated the loud confidence his friend group felt proud of. Sharing a tiny hostel room turned those small things into something bigger. Something layered. Something I didn't know how to name. Remember when we ordered pizza at 2 a.m. on our second week here? Josh asked now, leaning forward slightly, a small smile, tugging at his mouth. You ordered pizza, I corrected. I just ate most of it. He chuckled. You went on and on about how pineapple doesn't belong on pizza, and then you stole all the slices that had pineapple. I dragged a hand down my face. I panicked. You panicked and ate pineapple? I was hungry, I muttered. He laughed again, this warm, full sound that always did something to me. A laugh that felt like it belonged in private. Not because it was secret, but because it felt like a small gift every time he shared it. That pizza night was when I realized how naturally we got along. He'd stretched his legs across my bed without asking, scrolling on his phone, complaining about the dorm Wi-Fi while I teased him about his terrible taste in movies. We must have talked until 4 in the morning. There was a closeness in that moment I didn't fully process, like our friendship had stitched itself together without us noticing. But it wasn't all late-night jokes and stolen pineapple slices. Josh had a way of showing up when I needed him most. Like the time it poured out of nowhere while I was walking back from class. My jacket was soaked straight through, and the air was freezing. I had barely stepped foot inside when he grabbed a towel, tossed it at me, and said, "You'll get sick if your hair stays like that." The way he said it, gentle but firm, felt more intimate than anything should have. Or the time he played a stupid prank on me, hiding behind the closet door to scare me, and ended up apologizing for 20 minutes because I actually tripped over my backpack. He bought my favorite chocolate bar the next day, as compensation for emotional damage. Even our arguments were soft, silly, barely real. "We're out of cereal again," he'd say. "You ate it," I'd reply. He'd grin. "I thought we shared." And then he'd hand me the last cookie in the packet like it made up for everything. But the biggest complication, the one that would end up pulling us much closer, started the week our hostel announced mandatory renovations. The heating system needed fixing, and the management decided to temporarily shut down half the building for safety inspections, including our room. They gave us two options: a temporary common hall with bunk beds, or sharing one of the few available single rooms, with the understanding that two people would squeeze into a space meant for one. A literal forced closeness. Josh read the email aloud with a sigh while I lay on my bed, pretending to work on an assignment. So, they're kicking us out for 2 nights, he said. Yep. And the temporary hall looks like a summer camp run by people who hate joy. That's one way to put it. He threw the pillow at me. Don't pretend you're calm about this. I am calm, I lied. Totally fine. I wasn't fine. Sharing a room was already hard enough emotionally. Sharing a tiny single-room space with barely 2 feet between our beds was a nightmare waiting to happen. So, which one do we pick? He asked. The hall, I suggested weakly. An expression crossed his face. Something small. Something unreadable. You hate noise, he reminded me softly. It won't be that bad. He tilted his head. Or we could share the single room. It might be tight, but I don't mind. My heart thudded. Actually thudded. You wouldn't mind sharing a bed? I blurted out before my brain could stop me. He lifted an eyebrow. Who said anything about sharing a bed? Heat shot up my neck. I meant, the space. Sharing the space. He burst into laughter, and I swatted the pillow at him this time, burying my face in embarrassment. But then, quietly, almost seriously, he added, For real, though, I'd rather be in the same room as you than in a hall full of 30 snoring strangers. He said it like it was obvious, like it wasn't the single most dangerous sentence he'd ever spoken to me. We submitted our request that night. A shared temporary room for 2 nights. 1 small bed, 1 mattress on the floor, nearly no personal space, and a door that barely closed all the way. And that was only the beginning, because the next evening, a storm rolled in out of nowhere. Winds loud enough to rattle the windows, rain beating hard against the thin roof of the hostel. Streets flooded quicker than usual. The walk to the temporary rooms was a mess. Water rushing across the pavement, lightning cutting through the sky. We barely made it inside the small single room before the downpour got worse. Both of us were soaked through, shivering, breathless from running. Josh closed the door behind us, brushing water out of his hair, droplets sliding down his neck and soaking the collar of his shirt. Oh man, he exhaled, laughing under his breath. That storm came out of nowhere. It's freezing, I said, rubbing my arms. Without thinking, he reached out. Just a hand on my wrist, gentle, warm despite the cold. Here, sit. You're shaking. I froze not from the cold, but from him. From the simple, casual touch that lasted just a moment too long. When he let go, I felt the absence of his hand more intensely than I should have. Lightning flashed outside, painting the room briefly in white. The space was tiny, barely bigger than our original room but with half the distance between us. Just 1 bed against the wall, a single narrow window, a wooden chair, nothing else. Josh looked around, then at me. His expression softened again. Something warm, something tender, something I couldn't name. Guess we're stuck here together, he said, and I couldn't tell if he meant it lightly or if there was something deeper buried in his words. Either way, this was the moment everything quietly shifted. The complication we chose, the storm we didn't, and the closeness neither of us were truly prepared for. The storm outside wasn't easing up. If anything, it felt like it was tightening its grip around the small single room we'd been assigned. Rain hammering the window so violently it almost sounded like someone knocking to get in. The wind moaned through the cracks, and the lights flickered twice before settling into a dim, uneven glow. Josh tossed his damp backpack into the corner, then rubbed his hands together, shivering slightly. His shirt clung to him, soaked through from the sprint across campus. When he pulled it away from his chest and wrung it out, droplets of water hit the floor in a soft patter. I look like I just took a bath in the street, he muttered with a laugh. And somehow, even drenched, messy-haired, breathless, he still looked good. Too good. The kind of good that made my stomach tighten just from looking at him. He turned to me. You're freezing, man. You okay? Yeah, I said, even though my voice trembled and my fingers wouldn't stop shaking. Come here, he said instinctively, stepping closer. Too close. Let me. He touched my arm, rubbing gently up and down to warm the skin through my wet shirt. It should have felt friendly, normal. But something about the way his thumb lingered just a second longer than necessary sent a shiver through me that had nothing to do with the cold. He pulled back, smiling shyly. Sorry. Habit. My sister used to get cold really fast. It's fine, I murmured, trying to keep my breathing steady. My heart, however, didn't get the memo. Josh walked over to the tiny radiator under the window and twisted the knob. Sputtered, clanked, then began blowing warmish air. He turned back to me. We should change into dry clothes. Both of us are going to get sick if we stay like this. I hesitated. Not because I didn't want dry clothes, but because the only private corner in the room was behind the door, and even that wasn't fully hidden. The space was too small, too intimate, too charged. You can change first, I said quickly. Josh shrugged. Dude, we're both soaked. It doesn't matter who goes first. It matters to me, I blurted before thinking. His eyebrows lifted slightly, studying my face like he was searching for something underneath the words. A beat passed, quiet, heavy. Then he nodded. Okay, I'll turn around. He did. He literally turned his broad back toward me, hands in his hair as he squeezed out more water. I pulled off my shirt as fast as I could, trying to hide the way my chest rose too quickly, the way my skin flushed with more than cold. But every time the lightning flashed, the room lit up for a fraction of a second, making me feel unbearably visible. When I finished changing, I said softly, Okay, you can change now. He turned, tossed me a small, tired smile, and reached for the hem of his soaked shirt. And I made the mistake of looking at him instead of the wall. His shirt peeled away slowly, clinging to his skin in patches before it lifted off completely. Rainwater glistened over his shoulders, trailing down his chest. He shook his hair out, droplets flying, then ran a hand through it with a low exhale. I forced myself to look away. It didn't help. Why is it so cold even with the heater on? Josh complained lightly as he tugged on his dry shirt. If I get hypothermia, tell my sister I went out bravely. You tripped on a puddle? I reminded him. He smirked. A heroic puddle. I shook my head, trying not to smile too wide. But beneath the easy banter, my chest was tight. Too tight, because this wasn't just two friends stuck in a storm. It was me, trying not to fall deeper into something impossible. And him being unintentionally painfully lovable. As Josh sat on the bed to put on dry socks, the room shook with thunder. The lights flickered again. We better get some sleep soon, he said. If the storm knocks out the power, we'll be stuck in pitch dark. There's only one bed, I pointed out softly. Yeah. He shrugged casually, like it wasn't the biggest issue in the world. I'll take the floor mattress. Another flash of lightning filled the room, and his face appeared in white silhouette, a soft smile forming. Unless you want the mattress? I'm fine, I said quickly. You take the bed. He laughed. Great, because I wasn't actually offering you the bed. I was offering the mattress. I threw a pillow at him. He dodged, laughing harder. But then the storm cracked loudly, so loud the walls vibrated. Without thinking, I flinched. I hated storms. Always had. Something about the unpredictable violence of them made my chest tighten. Josh's laughter softened instantly. Hey! His voice went gentle. You okay? I'm fine. I lied again. He stood up, walked over, and for the first time that night, really looked at me. Not playfully, not casually, but with this warm, quiet concern that made my throat tighten. You don't like storms, he said softly. Do you? I swallowed, unable to hide it. Not really. He didn't tease me. He didn't make a joke. Instead, he reached out and squeezed my shoulder. Firm, reassuring, steady. His thumb brushed lightly against my collarbone. A soft, unintentional stroke that sent heat rushing through me. You're safe, you know, he murmured. It's just noise. It can't hurt us. I nodded, but my chest ached, because his hand lingered, his eyes lingered, and everything inside me screamed for something I wasn't supposed to want. Come sit, he said gently, guiding me toward the bed. You'll feel warmer. I sat slowly on the edge of the bed. He sat beside me, close enough that our knees touched. Not bumped, not brushed, touched. A warm, deliberate line of heat between us. He didn't move his leg away, and I didn't either. For a long moment we just sat there in the dim light, the storm raging outside while the room held a different kind of storm, quiet, internal, dangerous. Josh exhaled softly. You know, you always act like you're stronger than you are. I frowned. What's that supposed to mean? It means, he said, nudging my knee with his. You pretend things don't bother you, but they do. I don't pretend. You do, he said very gently. Like when you get overwhelmed, you try to hide it. I looked away. You're imagining things. No, he murmured. I'm not. He said it with certainty, with closeness, with a softness that wrapped around my ribs and squeezed. The power flickered again. Josh glanced at the light, then at me. If it goes out, are you okay with sleeping close? Like, closer than this? I whipped my head toward him. Why would we need to? He pointed at the drafty window. Because that heater sucks. It's already cold. And if the power goes out, it'll drop even more. And your solution, I said slowly, is sleeping closer? He shrugged, cheeks going a little pink. Something I had rarely seen on him. Body heat works. It's a science thing. You and your science, I muttered. He grinned. Look, man, I'm not trying to make it weird. I just don't want you freezing to death. But you'd freeze too. I run warm, he said casually. You've noticed that. The way he said it, like he knew the moments I'd felt the heat of his body beside mine, sent a jolt down my spine. He didn't push the subject, didn't joke, didn't tease. He just lay back on the bed, arms behind his head, eyes drifting toward the ceiling. Come here when you're ready, he said softly. I'll stay awake until you fall asleep. I stared at him, the steady rise and fall of his chest, the soft glow of the light catching the edge of his jaw, the unbelievably gentle tone in his voice. He had no idea what he was doing to me. Or maybe, dangerously, he did. Minutes passed. The storm howled louder. The heater sputtered out completely. The room grew colder. And Josh, still awake, turned his head toward me and patted the space beside him. Not the mattress on the floor. The bed. Come on, he murmured, voice a whisper through the darkness. You're shivering. I hesitated. Not because of the storm. Not even because of the cold. But because lying next to him, close enough to feel his breath, might break something inside me I couldn't fix. Are you sure? I whispered. His eyes softened. Yeah, he said. I want you here. My heart stuttered. He wanted me close. Not tolerated. Not allowed. Wanted. And that single word was enough to pull me slowly, carefully, dangerously toward him. Toward the bed, toward the warmth, toward the closeness I'd been avoiding and craving at the same time. I lay down beside him. The space between us vanished. His arm brushed mine. His thigh pressed lightly against my leg. His breath warmed the side of my neck. And in the tiny, flickering glow of the failing light, Josh turned slightly toward me. Not a lot. Just enough to make my heart almost break from wanting what I couldn't name. This was the conflict, the closeness, the danger of wanting more, and the beginning of something neither of us could pretend away anymore. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I kept shifting on my makeshift side of the tent, trying not to rustle too loudly, trying not to give myself away. The air had turned colder, and the small space we were stuck sharing felt both too warm and too intimate. Every time he exhaled, every time he moved beside me, the whole tent seemed to breathe with him. And every time his knee brushed mine under the shared sleeping bag, I felt it like a spark beneath my skin. He'd fallen asleep first, typical. He could sleep through a thunderstorm, through anything, even through the chaos he caused in my chest. But every now and then, he shifted closer, mumbling something, half asleep, his breath warming the side of my neck. I kept telling myself it didn't mean anything, that he was just cold, that this closeness was nothing to him. But to me, it felt like the edge of a cliff I'd been standing on for too long. Around midnight, it happened. He rolled towards me in his sleep, his arms sliding around my waist, his chest pressing against my back. I froze. Absolutely froze. My heart hammered so loudly in my ears I was sure he'd wake up and hear it. And then he whispered my name. Soft, tired, like it lived somewhere safe inside him. I didn't breathe for a full minute. Eventually, he stirred again, as if sensing my panic, and his arm loosened. But it didn't leave. Stayed draped around me, casual, unthinking, warm as a sunrise. I lay there silently falling apart. Because the truth was simple and brutal. I wanted this. I wanted him. And wanting him terrified me more than anything. Eventually, sometime close to dawn, he woke. I felt his body jolt slightly when he realized the position we were in. His hand hesitated on my waist before he slowly, painfully slowly, pulled it back. Sorry, he whispered, voice rough from sleep. Didn't mean to, cling. Cling? God. I turned over to face him, and even in the dim morning light I could see the flush on his cheeks. His hair was a mess. He looked unfairly good, tired, soft-eyed, warm. It's fine, I lied. It didn't bother me. He studied my face for a moment, too long, too intently, as if looking for something I wasn't ready to say out loud. And then he looked away, swallowing. We should probably talk, he said quietly. My stomach dropped. My lungs forgot how to work. About last night, he added. I forced a smile. Rainstorm, tent collapsing, sleeping bag malfunction. Nothing groundbreaking. His eyes flicked back to me, sharp, almost wounded. Don't do that. Do what? Pretend you didn't feel anything. Time stopped. Literally stopped. The forest outside our tent could have turned to stone for all I knew. I'm not pretending, I managed. You are. His voice wasn't angry. It was tired. Too honest. Like he'd spent the whole night fighting with himself too. He ran a hand through his hair, sighing. Look, I know you. Better than anyone. And last night, when we were close. He hesitated, eyes dropping to my mouth before flicking away. You froze. But not because you were uncomfortable. My throat tightened. Then why? He looked at me like he already knew the answer. Like he'd known for longer than I ever guessed. Because, he whispered. It meant something to you. Everything inside me twisted. I wanted to deny it. Wanted to laugh it off. Wanted to escape into some sarcastic comment like I always did. But his face, God, the vulnerability there, made lying impossible. It does, I finally said, quietly, brokenly. I didn't want. My voice cracked. Didn't want to ruin anything. His expression softened, all the tension draining from his shoulders. You're not ruining anything, he murmured. You don't know that. I do. We fell silent, the kind of silence that wraps around you, that demands truth. He shifted closer, not touching me, just close enough that I could feel the warmth of him. Can I ask you something? He said. Yeah. Have you felt this way for a while? My breath shook as I exhaled. Yeah, I whispered. Longer than I should have. He closed his eyes briefly, like the answer hit him somewhere deep. When he opened them again, they shone with something I couldn't read, nervousness. Maybe something else too. I always wondered, he admitted. Sometimes I'd catch you looking at me like you wanted to say something but didn't. I didn't want to lose you, I said. That part came out too easily, too raw. His voice went soft. You won't. You can't promise that. I can. Then quieter. I wouldn't let that happen. My chest tightened painfully. What about you? I asked before I could stop myself. Did last night mean anything to you, or was it just? He cut me off with the tiniest, saddest smile. Do you think I hold just anyone in my sleep? I stared at him. He wasn't joking. He wasn't teasing. He meant it. He swallowed, looking suddenly nervous. More nervous than I'd ever seen him. I don't know what this is yet, he said. I don't know what it means or what it makes me. But I know how I feel when I'm around you. He reached up, hesitating, then let his fingers brush mine under the blanket. My entire body lit up like every nerve had been waiting for that touch. "And how is that?" I asked. He took a shaky breath. "Like I don't want to be anywhere else." I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. He continued, voice trembling just a little. "When we're close, even by accident, something happens to me. And I've been trying to ignore it, because I didn't want to hurt you or confuse you or make this weird." "Too late," I whispered with a broken laugh. He laughed too, soft, relieved, and then fell quiet. His hand was still lightly touching mine. The world felt fragile, like one wrong word might break it. "Can I?" he started, then stopped. He swallowed. "Can I be honest? Please." He moved his hand properly into mine, lacing our fingers together slowly, as if giving me every chance to pull away. "I think I've been falling for you," he whispered. "And I didn't realize it until last night scared the hell out of me." My heart stopped, then restarted painfully. "You're not just saying that?" "No. I'm finally saying what I should have said ages ago." The tension between us. Months of silence, fear, pretending, finally cracked. He leaned closer, unsure, hesitant. His forehead almost touched mine. I felt his breath, felt his hand shake inside mine. "Is this okay?" he asked. "Yes," I breathed. "It's more than okay." He let out a shaky exhale and brought his other hand to my cheek, thumb brushing my skin like he was memorizing the feeling. For a moment we just stayed like that, suspended in something quiet and terrifying and beautiful. And then, slowly, carefully, as if he was afraid the moment might shatter, he pressed his lips to mine. It wasn't a dramatic kiss. It wasn't rushed or messy or desperate. It was gentle, barely there, a confession in itself. I felt every unspoken word in it. When he pulled back, his forehead stayed against mine, our breaths mixing in the cool morning air. "We're going to figure this out," he whispered. "I want to. With you." I closed my eyes, finally allowing the truth to settle in my chest. "Me too," I said. "God, me too." Outside, the world was waking up. But for the first time, it felt like we were two. Together. For a long moment after the kiss, neither of us moved. His forehead rested against mine, our breaths sinking slowly, like we were learning each other all over again. The morning light slipped through the tent fabric, soft and gold, painting his features with a warmth I'd never seen on him before. Or maybe I just hadn't let myself look. He pulled back an inch and smiled. A small, nervous, almost disbelieving smile. "Did that actually just happen?" he whispered, more statement than question. "Feels like it," I murmured. "Feels like?" he teased, nudging my knee with his. "So you're not sure?" "I'm still recovering," I said, trying not to grin. "My heart hasn't caught up yet." He laughed under his breath, eyes dropping shyly, and it hit me how surreal it was, him looking shy because of me, him touching me and not pulling away, him kissing me like he'd been wanting to. Everything felt different, lighter, sharper, like color had finally come back into the world. He brushed his thumb across the back of my hand again, slower this time, intentional. "You okay?" I nodded, though my voice caught a little. Yeah, I'm really good." "Good," he whispered, "because I wasn't sure if I'd freaked you out." "You? Freak me out? That's not how this works." I nudged him. "I'm the one who's been panicking for months." He smirked. "Only months?" "Oh, shut up." He laughed. Open, honest, warm, and something inside my chest loosened. For the first time in ages, I wasn't calculating the distance between us or pretending I didn't want him as badly as I did. I could just be with him. He shifted, sitting up a little, tugging the sleeping bag around our shoulders to keep the warmth in. Our knees knocked together and he didn't move away. Instead, he leaned gently into me, shoulder pressed to mine. "I'm still trying to figure out how to say this without sounding like an idiot," he admitted. "Try me." "I feel lighter," he said, "like I've been holding something in for ages and now it's just out." "Same," I said, voice soft. I didn't realize how heavy hiding it was. He looked at me then, really looked. "Why didn't you tell me before now?" I swallowed, picking at the edge of the blanket. Because you mattered too much. If I misread things, if I ruined what we had, I wouldn't forgive myself. His expression gentled, a mix of fondness and something deeper. You could never ruin us. You don't know that. I do, he said with quiet certainty. Because losing you was the one thing I was trying not to think about. I kept worrying I'd push too far, or that you'd pull away. And now that I know you wanted something too, he shook his head, laughing softly at himself. I feel like an idiot. A cute idiot, I said before I could stop myself. He blinked. Cute. I covered my face with my hands. Oh God. He pulled them gently away, fingers lingering on mine. Say it again. Nope. He leaned closer. Come on. I liked it. I regret everything. I groaned. He laughed, bumping his shoulder into mine. Look at us. Being embarrassing already. New phase unlocked, I said, leaning into him a little just to see if he'd react. He did. His breath hitched slightly, and he slid his hand along mine again, fingertips brushing my palm. It was such a small touch, but it felt like electricity. The kind of touch you don't hide anymore. So, he said after a moment, voice quieter. What do we do now? I looked at him. What do you want to do? He hesitated, then spoke honestly, simply. I want to stay close to you. Not just today. Not just because we finally said it. I want this to be real. My chest tightened. It is real. I know, he murmured. I just don't want to mess it up. You won't. Promise. I nodded slowly. Promise. He exhaled like he'd been holding that breath for days. Then he reached for my hand again. No hesitation this time, and intertwined our fingers properly, firmly. It was absurd how right it felt. We'll take it one step at a time, I said. Figure out the rest as we go. He squeezed my hand. I like the sound of that. Outside, the rain had completely stopped. Birds had started their morning chatter, the forest waking up around us. Inside the tent, it felt like we were in our own little world, one that had shifted into something warmer, sweeter. He leaned his head onto my shoulder. Another new thing. Another soft shock to my heart. I'm not used to this, he whispered. To what? To letting myself feel things like this. His fingers tightened around mine. But with you it feels safe. I swallowed hard, my voice barely steady. You're safe with me. His breath warmed my neck. Good. Because I want to keep doing this. Just sitting here? I teased lightly. Sitting, he said. Being close. Touching you. All of it. My face burned. You're going to be unbearable now that you know I like you. Oh, I've known, he said smugly. I turned to stare at him. You have not. I had suspicions. Why didn't you say anything? He shrugged, grinning. Because then you'd have known I liked you too. The confidence in his tone made my heart stumble. We stayed like that, half-tangled, sitting close, sharing the sleeping bag, just talking. Quiet things. Soft things. Ridiculously tender things neither of us would have dared to say 24 hours ago. Eventually, he shifted again, lifting my hand to his lips. He kissed my knuckles, light, shy, but sure. It was such a small gesture. But it hit me harder than the kiss earlier. You really want this? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He nodded. I really do, and I want to see where it goes. Even if it's messy. Even if we figure it out slowly. I let out a long breath, the last piece of fear finally melting from my chest. Yeah, I said. Me too. I want all of it. His smile softened. He leaned in, our foreheads touching again. Good, he whispered, because I'm not letting go now. And in the quiet of that morning, wrapped in warmth, honesty, and the newness of us, nothing had ever felt more right. By the time we packed up the tent, the sky had cleared into a soft, pale blue, the kind of morning that felt like a clean slate. The damp earth smelled fresh, like something had been washed away during the night. Maybe something had. Maybe we'd both been carrying our fears around for so long that the storm had taken them with it. He walked beside me as we made our way back towards the hostel, our steps sinking into the wet ground. It wasn't a long walk, but it felt different now. Slower, warmer, quietly significant. Every so often, our shoulders brushed, and neither of us moved away. Each touch felt like a small reminder that this was real, that last night hadn't been some fragile moment that would disappear with daylight. At one point, he reached for the strap of my backpack, tugging me a little closer, pretending it was accidental. He wasn't subtle. I didn't mind. A little laugh escaped me, and he shot me a mock-guilty glance. "What? You're terrible at pretending." "Good," he said. "I don't want to pretend anymore." The honesty in his voice made my chest tighten. I wanted to stop walking just to look at him properly, but the path was muddy, and the forest was still waking up. Instead, I kept pace with him, letting the warmth of his nearness sink in. He nudged me gently. "You're quiet." "I'm thinking. About last night? About everything." He slowed his step, shifting slightly so he could see my face. "Good thoughts." I nodded, though my throat felt thick. "Mostly good. Some terrifying." "Terrifying?" I kicked at a small stone on the path, watching it skim across the wet leaves. "I guess I'm just realizing how much I want this to work, which makes it all feel big." He didn't laugh or tease me. Instead, he stopped walking and touched my arm lightly, urging me to look at him. "I want it to work too," he said, steady and sure. "It feels big to me as well." A small smile tugged at his lips. Then, without warning, he reached for the zip of my hoodie and tugged it lightly. Our own quiet, unspoken inside joke from last night, when he teased me about always wearing too many layers even indoors. That simple gesture, gentle, playful, full of meaning only we understood, hit deeper than any dramatic declaration could have. I laughed softly. "You're impossible. Get used to it," he said, a little grin forming. Inside the room, everything felt strangely new. Familiar space, unfamiliar air. He hung his jacket on the chair, then wandered over to my bed, sitting down with the sort of comfort that came from years of friendship, but now layered with something undeniably more. I sat beside him, close enough that our arms brushed. He didn't move away. Neither did I. For a long moment we just sat there, letting the silence settle between us. Comfortable, easy. Then he turned to me. "So, about the future." My pulse hitched. "Yeah. I know things might get complicated," he said slowly. "People talk. People assume things. And we'll probably have to navigate all of that. But if we're honest with each other, really honest, I think we can handle whatever comes." I nodded, letting his words sink in. "We'll figure it out, just like we figured out last night." He smiled. "Yeah, exactly." He reached for my hand again, twining our fingers loosely this time. Less intense, more natural. The sort of touch that didn't need justification anymore. "Also," he added, playfulness creeping back into his tone, "I'm going to need you to stop panicking every time I look at you for more than 2 seconds. That's not going to happen. You can try." "Not likely." He laughed, leaning gently against my shoulder. "Fine. I'll take what I can get." We sat there like that, his head on my shoulder, my fingers tangled with his, the morning light stretching softly across the room, as if the universe had quietly nudged us into place. He lifted his head slightly, just enough to meet my eyes. "Hey, yeah, we're really doing this, aren't we?" I squeezed his hand. "Yeah, we are." A soft smile spread across his face, the kind of smile people make when they're standing at the edge of something good. And in that moment, with the world humming gently outside our window and the warmth of him pressed against me, I realized something simple and certain. This wasn't an ending. It was the start of everything we hadn't dared to imagine. If you enjoyed this emotional journey and want to see more heartwarming and slow-burn love stories, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for new stories every week. Sparkling heart. I want to hear from you. What would you do if your best friend suddenly showed feelings for you? Comment below and let us know your thoughts. Backhand index pointing down.